Review practical activity. This is quite a big activity, so it will take some time. Open 8.56, review task, and look up the vehicle rates worksheet. So they'll just explain over here. A vehicle hire company rents out vehicles to customers. The types of vehicles available are shown in A4 to A11, which are named as vehicle types. So you can see over here is this has been named as vehicle types. Okay. A table in the column A to F shown shows the types of vehicle available, the minimum age of the drivers for each vehicle, and the range of each, and the charge rates for each vehicle. So you can see over here is the minimum age required, and here are the rates per day for the vehicle. Okay, and there are two rates. There is rate 2 and there is rate 3. The table of the points in cell G7 to G9 refers to a set of range for the number of penalty points a driver may have on their driving license. Cells G6 to G9 have been named as points. So you can see over here, these have been named as points, right? Okay. Then cell B30 refers to the number of drivers that will be hiring a vehicle over here. Merge cells C2 to F2 give the merge cells a yellow shading and align text centrally in the cell. So C2 to F2, right? So we have to C2 to F2 have to merge. So we merged it and we're going to give it a yellow, right? Sorry, it's C2 to F2. C2 to F2, right? Resize columns A to F so that all data is visible. Okay, so we will obviously resize it in such a way that all the data is properly visible. Name the range. Okay. Name the range A4 to E12. So A4 to E A4 to E12 as vehicle rates. So we are just going to define name this as insert a new row between row 5 and 6. For estate vehicle, with a minimum age of 21 and charging rates of 34, 38, 42. 34, 38, and 42. Okay, so the charge rate is determined by the number of driving conviction points that a driver has in the last 5 years. 0 conviction points, rate 1. 1 to 3 conviction point, rate 2. 4 to 6 conviction points, rate 3. Okay. If there are any additional drivers, then whoever has the highest number of conviction point is used to determine the charge point. The driver in the example above has 3 penalty points and so would be charged rate 2. Okay, right. Switch to the code worksheet over here. The quote worksheet is an input form used to calculate the cost of hiring a vehicle. Create a validation rule in cell C16 that will only accept vehicles that exist in the name range this. So in cell C16, as you can see over here, we simply have to do is we simply have to come into data and we'll come into validation and we'll select a list over here and we're simply going to browse to the following list of vehicles and press OK. So we'll only have the list of vehicles which are available over here, right? Use an appropriate error message if invalid data is input. I didn't do that, but obviously you can put an error message over here, a title for the message and an error message, and also an input message. Create a drop-down box for the number of conviction points. The input range for the drop-down should only contain the values from the name range points and must be a form control, not a validation rule. The charge rate should be stored in F12. So in F12, as you can see, F12. So we will simply click again this. We are going to select from here is the list again. Okay, and the source obviously will be this. And we're going to press OK. So I have the charge rate over here. Okay. Okay. The quote reference is calculated by taking the initials of the drivers and adding the year of the current date, following by hyphen, followed by the month of the current date, followed by another hyphen, followed by the day of the current date. For example, the reference of Saem Andrews on 20th May would be this. Create a formula in cell F6 to calculate the quote reference. The expiry date is calculated as 7 days after the date of quote. Assume that the date of the quote is the current date. Okay. So the quote reference is calculated by taking the initials of the driver and adding the year. So that's the driver. So you can see over here is we have over here is the driver. Okay. Name. And then we have the year. Okay. Which you hold on by adding the year of the current date. Okay, and adding the year of the current date, followed by hyphen, followed by the month of the current date, followed by another hyphen, followed by the day of the current date. For example, reference of this is this. The formula in 2 to calculate the quotation. The expiry date is calculated as 7 days after the date of quote. Assume that the date of quote is current. Okay, fine. So all we have to do is we have to apply the formula in F6. So in F6, over here, we'll simply do is we'll have is equals to so we'll have is first of all followed by initials of the driver. So I'll use over here, since it's an uppercase, I'll use upper, then I'll use left. I'll refer to this and I need to close the bracket and I need to concatenate. And we need from here is basically today's we want is year, month, and date. So actually, I have to do is expiry date, hire date. Uh, where do I type it in? I just want to see Paul by 20th May 2019, 20th May 2019. Do I have a 2020? Yeah, so I'll assume this one, right? So what we can do is we just want to use the year and I can put the hyphen. So now I can put the hyphen. So I can put this in double quotes, a hyphen. And obviously I need to concatenate and concatenate. So right, we got the hyphen. Now we want is to concatenate this with the month, same, and concatenate with the hyphen. Sorry, that's not the hyphen. And then concatenate with the day. Right? So we end up something like this. Right? Exactly. So you get the point. Okay. So you'll see we get something like this, capital. Right. Okay. Right. The expiry date is calculated as 7 days after the date of the quote. Assume that the date of the quote is current date. Do we have in the date of the quote? Quote reference. Instances. Create a function. Okay. So right. Create a formula in F9 that will calculate the expiry date of the quote.